So I figure that this video will do the live Q&A thing, so you guys can ask away with questions that you have. But I did put together a kind of structure of what I wanted to talk about, and in this video I'm going to make available at polynome.net/demos, which you can see on the left of the screen. So this is something that I'll probably edit the start out of, and you would be able to come and watch this again. So if there's anything that I go through too quickly, you know where it is. And if I demonstrate any playlists and things like that, I will make those available for download for patrons on that same page. So that's the plan of how that's going to work. But what I wanted to talk about in this video is how you can use PolyNome to get rid of the frustrations with practicing. So common frustrations with practicing. So I've jotted down a few of mine, but if you guys have some, this is where you can put them in the comments. So for me, deciding what I want to practice, if I get to my kit and I sit down and I think, what should I work on today? And I might spend a while debating what I want to work on, and that's not fun. If I'm going to schedule my practice ahead of time, where should I schedule it? Should I write it in a notebook? Should I put it on reminders in my phone? Should I have an Excel spreadsheet? So that's something. And then when it comes to actually doing the practice, I like routines that are of a set length, for example. So I might work on something for 5 minutes, or I might work on an exercise where I want to play so many repetitions of an exercise and then up the tempo a little bit, and then do the same reps and then up the tempo some more. And doing that manually and having a kitchen timer or a timer on your phone and a separate metronome, and having to stop and restart timers and change tempos, all of that kind of stuff I find is a distraction from the actual practicing, which is the fun part. And then if you want to log your practice, what do you log it in? Do you, again, write it down in a notebook, or do you have an app to put it into, or do you put it into an Excel spreadsheet? And then when you've got pages and pages of notes that kind of said what you worked on, how do you take that information and make it useful to you? So they're my frustrations. And like I say, if you've got some frustrations of your own, feel free to put them in the comments. I can see one from Joy that says, what is a good way to set goals and be able to see how we are progressing? So I am going to cover that. And if, as we go along, you have more questions, either you could save them till the end if they are not particularly related to this, and if they are specifically related to this, then post them in the comments as we go. Just be aware that there's something like a 20-second delay on this. So you will type your message and I won't see your message for half a minute, which can make things a little bit tricky. So I might have answered your question already by the time you asked it, or I might be into another topic. So Bruce says these are all on point for you. That's great. I feel like they are common practice frustrations. And as we discover more practice frustrations, and if PolyNome doesn't already have a way of dealing with them, then I plan to put that into future versions. So with that in mind, let's have a look at what's next on my list, what we'll cover. So to begin with, I'm going to give a brief overview of the different areas of PolyNome. I'm doing hand gestures, but I realize you can't see them because my hands are down here. I'm going to do a brief overview of the different areas of PolyNome, just for anybody who isn't familiar with the app. But I'm not going to go into too much detail because there's a lot of instruction built into the app for first-time users, and I don't want to spend too much time covering ground that is covered in other places. And then I'm going to show you an example practice workflow which takes into account what I was saying about where you might schedule something and how you might practice and log what you've practiced and all of the things that we just talked about. And then I will show you how to create and organize playlists, and you'll know what a playlist is by that time. and I'll show you how what I did for this exact example practice workflow. So how I kind of set up that example, and then I'll show you the tracking practice features, and finally how you can set goals. And Malcolm, yes, this video will be available to view afterwards, and if you look in the bottom left of the screen, you can see polynome.net/demos. That's where I intend to put it. And if you were to look there at the moment, you would see some conversations that I've recorded with people in the past, kind of explaining some of the more in-depth features of PolyNome. So let's take a breath and let's get started. So I'm going to load this up as its own thing. So the basic structure of PolyNome. Let me bring up PolyNome on the screen. So this is in an iPhone, but I've sized it so that you can't see the top and bottom so that you can fit more on. I realize this is quite small if you're viewing on an iPhone. And when you load it for the first time, this is the page that you see, which is the basic pattern page. And there's a mixer down in the bottom, which you can toggle with this button. And there's a lot of faders in the mixer. And you can narrow these faders down to just the metronome faders, which is like a Dr. Beat, if anybody ever owned one of those metronomes. And when you're playing, you can push up the AND fader and the subdivision faders, or you can push up the triplet faders. So you've got some really basic metronome features available. And then the power of PolyNome is that you can program in sequences, and there are two separate sequences, this one and this one, which basically do exactly the same thing. You can just have two running at the same time. So I'm going to just quickly show you, and if you're not used to the app, then this will seem like I'm rushing through some things, but I saw a post on Instagram this morning that had a bar of 16th notes, and then a bar of triplets, and then another bar of 16th notes, and a bar of quintuplets with a paradiddle played over the whole pattern. Now that would take a long time to program into most sequences, or you probably can't program it into most metronomes. I'll show you how easy it is to do that in PolyNome. You tap in sequencer 1 and edit the pattern. This is the starting point for pretty much everything. We're basically going to edit these 4 notes. So we go to the edit pattern page, and you're presented with somewhere that you can enter rhythms using all of these different groupings. So I'm going to clear what's in here, just tap and hold on the delete button. And then I'm going to enter a bar of 16ths, a bar of triplets, another bar of 16ths, and then a bar of quintuplets, which you'll find, because it's a more odd rate, you'll find in this slider. You can change this to any subdivision you want, and this button will become that subdivision. So a bar of quintuplets to finish. So this is our rhythm. And then I want to add a paradiddle sticking to this entire rhythm. And again, a feature unique to PolyNome is that you only have to enter a single paradiddle, and you'll note that it's going to loop this sticking over the rhythm. So right, left, right, left, left. And that's it. That's how you get a paradiddle over those rates. That's it, done. If you want this to play on a practice pad sound, you tap and choose sound picker, and then you can set individual sounds from, there's about 500 sounds in here, or you can click on sets, and I'm going to set pads as the sound, which is a different practice pad sound for the right hand and the left hand. And now it's played on a practice pad. So this is an example of something that you might want to work on, and you might not want to necessarily have this playing on a practice pad sound. Maybe you just want the click and you want to play this. So you can very easily in the mixer go to the sequencer 1 faders and pull down this line 1 fader, and now you just have the click with the notation. So at this point, I want to point out one of the most kind of important features with regards to tracking your practice, which is this is the default preset that I modified. What I want to do is save this as the exercise name so that I know what it is, and so when it's tracked, it will be tracked with that exercise name. So this plus is now flashing at the top, which means there are unsaved changes. I'm going to tap on that and save as, and I'll call it paradiddle exercise. So this has now been added to the presets library, which is the next thing that I want to show you. So the presets library on the iPhone is to the right of this screen, and you can get there by swiping or tapping on this button. And on an iPad, you will see that the presets and the main screen are both visible all the time. And you see that what I just saved is in my presets library, and it's called paradiddle exercise. And if I want, I can tap on this little note and add some notes about this exercise. You can type whatever you want. Play, let's say goal tempo is 200 or something like that. And then you'll see this is now a populated notes button, which means you know you can click on it and read something about the preset. So if we now go back and I just hit play on here, in fact I was demonstrating something the other day. I'm just going to go into preferences and say minimum practice time to log. By default it's everything, but if you don't want it to log everything, you can choose a minimum time for it to log. So you'll see what happens. I'm going to tap on this button, which is the practice event viewer, and when I hit play, you see we're playing paradiddle exercise, and then when I stop, you'll see a new event is added. So we practice for 6 seconds at 120 BPM on Saturday 15th of August with the paradiddle exercise. So PolyNome will automatically do the legwork of tracking what you've worked on, and you'll see later on how you can use that information to see when the last time you worked on an exercise was and what tempos you've worked on, and notes about how you were feeling. That's where the real power comes in when it comes to motivating yourself and kind of keeping track of what you've done. Excuse me. So we have the main pattern page, and now you can see the kind of things you can very quickly enter in here. And I'll just point out that not only can you enter drum patterns with stickings, but you can also, when you're below the notes, if you tap on this sound buttons, you can go to a keyboard, so you can enter melodic ideas. There's a conical page, and you can enter conical exercises. And there's a counting page where you can manually add counting. So there's a lot of stuff you can do with that. So that is an example of the main pattern page and the presets. So let's say you had this exercise to work on, and I've got a snarky puppy vamp here, which is the solo section of the song What About Me, which sounds like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 2, 3, 4, 3. And I have some voice counting to help keep track of where you are. So maybe that's one of the things you want to do, is work on playing along to that vamp. So these are all individual presets, and what I would do is if I wanted to use it just with presets, I might say, okay, I'm going to work on the paradiddle exercise today. When is the last time I worked on that exercise, I wonder? So with writing things down in a notebook, I'd have to go and flick through my notebooks and find some, reference to paradiddle exercise and know that it was this one exactly. And, that is going to take some time. In PolyNome, you just tap on this button on the right, the chart button. It's the practice log button, and this will show you, it will load the practice log for just that preset. So at the top you can see current filters, and paradiddle exercise is what we're filtering on, and then you get these statistics which says that today I played this for 6 seconds, and the last time I played this was also today because I just created this exercise today, so I've never played it before. and I have a 1-day streak, meaning I practice today. If I practice tomorrow, that will be a 2-day streak. And you can see the maximum tempo that I played at and some other statistics. So for this particular exercise, there's not much to report, but that's really useful when you come to something that you haven't played for a long time and you want to know what exactly, what tempos you were working on, and if you made notes, which I'll show you how to do that. So that's a single preset and how you might use that in a practice context. But the real power, I would say, of PolyNome is with playlists, because what if you wanted to work on this paradiddle exercise, but you wanted to work at it and automate the tempo so that you would play 2 reps and then you would increase the tempo and then another 2 reps and increase the tempo again? You can't do that with a preset. You have to do it in a playlist. So just to reiterate, you've got the main screen here, you have the presets here, and this space is also used for viewing playlists. So if you tap where it says presets, you have options for playlist and playlist manager. So a playlist, this is the one that loads by default, and you can tap on any of these rows and there are videos which explain more about playlists. So this is a playlist of videos. I'm going to show you some more playlists, and playlist manager is basically the library of all of your playlists. So you can have as many presets as you want in PolyNome, and you can have as many playlists as you want in PolyNome. And the playlist manager is where you go to see your list of playlists. Playlist is starting to sound like a really weird word to me. So this is the playlist manager, and you can see I have a lot of playlists in here. So this is a tip that a lot of people don't know about, but if you tap right at the top of the screen, it will scroll to the top of the table, and that is in most iOS apps. You might find that handy. So in here, I have a whole bunch of different playlists, and I'm going to just load a couple to show you the kind of variety of things that you can do with playlists. So first of all, I'm going to load this 40 essential rudiments. And note that it tells me that this playlist lasts for 4.5 minutes, and it has 42 presets in it. So I'll load it up, and you'll see we've got single stroke roll, single stroke 4, single stroke 7. I think I pulled these from a Vic Firth poster. And if I click one of these, let's say something interesting sounding, Flamacue. Let's tap on that to load it. By the way, there's a new feature in this version where if you double tap, it will automatically scroll back to this page for you. So you can see we've got the Flamacue written in here. And this is an alternating sticking. So I've written the right-hand version here and the left-hand version underneath, just so you know that you would play it alternating. Now, because this is in a playlist, it has the option to automatically move on to the next item when it's done. So this is set to 4 reps. So it will play it 4 times, and then it will move on to the Flam Paradiddle, which it will play that for 4 reps. Then it will move on to this one. So this playlist, starts at the top with a single stroke roll and then moves through all of the items. And if you want to see the sticking, you can tap here to scroll back. So this playlist is basically taking you through all of the 40 essential rudiments. And you can see, that one sounds kind of crazy, but you can see that they were being logged as we played them. So 9 seconds on single stroke 7, 4 seconds on single stroke 4, etc. And within a playlist, you can loop certain items if you want. So let's say you just wanted to work on the 5-stroke roll and the 5-stroke roll triplet. If you tap and hold, you can select those 2 items and then tap the giant loop button, and it will play just those 2 items. So now you've got a different exercise to focus in on just those 2 items. So I'm going to clear the looping, and I don't want to get into too much detail about the specifics. There are so many things you can do within a playlist that it would take all of the time if I just started talking about those things. So perhaps in a future video I'll go into some of those fun features. But that's one example of a playlist. And then I'm going to go back to Playlist Manager and I'll show you some tips for that. You can either tap here and choose Playlist Manager, or you can tap on the playlist name and go to Playlist Manager, or you can long press on the playlist name and that will also take you to Playlist Manager. So then we have Wilcoxon's 136th, which is a rudimental piece that utilizes lots of different rudiments. So just a quick example of this. This is being played on a snare drum. So again, if you were working on this, you might want to just loop certain bars or work on certain sections. And when you have a playlist like this, where all the items are playing one rep of each, if you want to focus on just this item, if you go back to the main page and tap where it says play once, these are red because they are using settings from the playlist. And if I tap this, it will disable the playlist and allow me to play just this exercise on its own. It will loop it forever, and I can change the tempo to play it more slowly. And then when I'm happy with this, I can go back and load it in the playlist and it remembers the tempo that it was using before. So that's using a playlist for a rudimental piece. And then I'll long press on here to go back, and you can see we have some other examples. So I'll show you some more of these in my example workflow, because I've kind of jumped ahead and shown you a lot of things already that are going to be in this section. Okay, so an example practice workflow, how my day might start, and then I'll show you how to set this up. So to begin with, there are notifications in PolyNome. If you go to Preferences, right at the top, there's Current Notifications, and you can turn on Achievements, which will give you a notification at the end of each day that tells you if you've beat any previous practice records and how long your consecutive days of practice are and whether you've beaten previous practice streak records. So you can turn on a daily summary, which will give you something every day, a weekly summary, which will give you a summary at the end of the week, and monthly summary, which, believe it or not, will give you a summary at the end of the month. Then you can turn on a practice reminder. So this is just an alarm to say, go and practice. So you just switch it on and then tap on the time and choose what time you want to be reminded. And finally, there's this missed practice reminder, which will basically give you a kind of kick in the backside if you haven't practiced for a number of days. So maybe you only practice 3 times a week, so you don't want a reminder every day, but you want to be nudged if it's 2 or 3 days since you last practiced. So you can set that up in here, and there's some nice inspirational quotes that come with those reminders. So my day might start by PolyNome telling me it's time to practice, and I'm going to pretend it's Monday because that's what I set up in my example. But rather than just come here and go and find random presets that I want to work on, I would have set my practice schedule up in playlists. So we'll go to the playlist page, and right at the bottom you'll see there's this quick access area. So what I do is put the playlist that I want to work on into a quick access playlist with the name of the day that I would work on it. So if you tap on this gear button, I can load a quick access playlist, and I set up Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday. So let's pretend it's Monday. So I just tap on this, and this loads my practice routine for Monday. So I've decided that I'm going to work on singles and doubles warm-up, and then I'm going to play the 40 essential rudiments, and then I'm going to do the Wilcoxon's piece. So that's my practice for Monday. So once I've loaded this, you'll see in this quick access it tells me that's what I'm viewing, Monday, and I can swipe through and load them from here as well as loading them from here. So I'm going to load the singles doubles warm-up, and this has some automatic tempo changes added to it. So it plays singles for 1 rep and then doubles for 1 rep, and down here you can see it's going to loop forever but it's actually not. The increase is going to increase by 10 BPM on each loop of the playlist, and it's going to go from 100 to 120, and then it will reverse and stop. So all those settings are in playlist controls. If you swipe to the bottom, when looping is on, you can turn on tempo change. Like as you turn these on and off, you get more options. So tempo change is set to increase by 10 BPM. I turn on boundaries and I say minimum tempo 100, maximum 120, and the action is reverse and stop. So basically it's a warm-up cooldown, and because it's going to stop at the end of this, PolyNome is smart enough to be able to calculate how long it will take to play this entire routine. So the first loop is going to take 4 seconds, and to do all the tempo changes it will require 5 loops, and so this entire exercise is 20 seconds. So if I hit play, watch here, rep 1, no tempo change. Rep 2 plus 10 BPM. Rep 3 plus 20 BPM, and 120 was our maximum boundary. So now it comes back down to 110, and then back down to 100, and then it stops. So that's my warm-up and cool-down. I didn't have to time anything, I didn't have to change any tempos, I could play along to that. I know exactly how long it's going to take. And while we're on that topic, there are things you can do in PolyNome where you can tell it that you have more time. So if I tap on this playlist time row, I can choose set the first loop time or set the total time. In fact, I haven't done this for a long time, so it might not do what I expect. But let's see what happens if I say set total time to 2 minutes and 20 seconds. You see that it changes how long we're going to play each thing for. So it's figured out that if you play the singles for 14 seconds and the doubles for 14 seconds, and then you increase the tempo, the first loop is going to be 28 seconds, and 5 loops is 2.5 minutes. So basically you've got your warm-up, and you've now just customized it to fit into the time you have available. So if you didn't have 2.5 minutes, you say I need to do a quicker warm-up, set total time, I've only got 1 minute and 24 seconds. So now you're only playing 8 seconds of singles followed by 8 seconds of doubles. So whenever you have a playlist that knows the playlist time, this playlist time will show up in the playlist manager. So if I just quickly jump into playlist manager, you can sort by practice time or recent. So recently we did this singles doubles warm up, and the practice time is 1 minute 28 seconds. And when you are adding playlists to a quick access, which I'll show you a bit later, you'll see that the time is summed at the top. So this warm-up takes up 1.5 minutes, this is 53 seconds, this is 3 minutes 50 seconds. So you can see, if you've got time to do all these exercises. So let's go back. So once you've finished your warm-up, this quick access has automatically scrolled along to say the next thing you want to work on is 40 essential rudiments. So I'll tap on it and it loads the playlist. And now in the same way that we did with the presets, I can tap on this practice log button, takes me into the practice log for 40 essential rudiments, and I can see the last time I worked on this was 4 days ago, and I played it for a minute, and today I've played it for 31 seconds. And the progress things on here is basically you're competing against yourself. So if this got to 100%, that would mean that I practiced as much today as I did the last time I practiced. So if you always make this green, which is the color it turns when you get to 100%, then you're always basically keeping up with your previous practice achievements. And you'll see, depending on how much stuff is logged, you'll see things for the week and the month and the year. So last year I worked on this for 22 minutes, and this year I've only worked on it for 6 minutes in total. So that's a useful bit of information when you jump into a playlist to know what you were, when you last worked on it and for how long and at what tempos. So when you've worked through this, the quick access is scrolled to your last exercise, so you load this up. Same thing, you can click on the practice log, I last worked on this 3 days ago, only for 9 seconds, and today I've played it for 13 seconds, so kicked ass, and I'm 144% up on last time. The last 7 days, I worked on it for 44 seconds, and in this last 7 days, I've worked on it for 30 seconds, 35 seconds. The previous 7 days for 44 seconds, so my week achievement is down. But in the previous 30 days, I only 2 seconds, and this 30 days, I've done 2 minutes, so I'm way up. So, and my longest streak was 2 days. So you've got a whole bunch of information here, and all of the individual events that go up to make these statistics are just in here. So 3 seconds on this item, and 3 seconds on this item, 2 seconds on this item, and they're all summarized in this. And if you want to see the events that make up this 9 seconds from 3 days ago, you just tap it and it will show you 3 days ago exactly what you worked on. And if you want to see today's 13 seconds, you just tap on this and you see the events from today. And we'll come back to the practice log a bit later. So let's just see if I covered my things. The simple version was saving a preset with the name of what you're working on and seeing when you last worked on it, and then noting that your progress is logged for that item. And the advanced version, I get my reminder to practice, I go into the playlist manager and load my Monday routine. I actually did that with a quick access playlist. I looked in the practice log to see when I last played it and if I made any notes, and then I play through all the exercises, and then I add notes about how I'm feeling or any issues I'm having. So I'm going to demonstrate this notes thing because I think this is, like, for me, one of the most useful features. So I'm going to go ahead and load a playlist called Stone Killer Hands Workout. You can see this is a 19-minute, 41-second workout. And this is the only bit of actual practice that I've done probably in the last year, because I spend all my time working on PolyNome features. And I actually did some practice with this. Now, this is some instructions about what the playlist is. So play 8 notes with one hand at a time. As the tempo increases, move from wrists and fingers to fingers only. And you can use the slider to change the tempo of the entire workout. Okay, I just saw a question pop up from Bruce. If you save a changed preset under the same name, will it continue the same stats? Yes. I'll come back to this playlist in a second. Basically, if you're on the presets page, this is an entity. This paradiddle exercise is an entity, and practice events are attached to that entity. But you can rename this. If you saved it as a new item, so I click on here and save as and call it version 2, then that is a separate entity. So this has no practice events, and this has all of the practice events. If you wanted, I'm going to delete this. If you wanted to just change the name of this, you can do that by tapping on the name in here and choosing rename preset. And if you rename it, then the practice events will all be updated. So they remain and they get updated. But if you save it as something else, then that's a separate entity. So I hope that makes sense. And you can't save two things with the same name to kind of avoid confusion. So if I said save as, and I tried to save it as paradiddle exercise, it's going to tell me that that exists already. So give it another name. Now in playlists, we'll go back to a playlist. In playlists, you can have as many things as you want with different names, and they still all have their individual practice events assigned to them, but it works in a playlist, and I'll show you some ways that you can utilize that a little bit later. Oh yes, Joy, you did see an option for make lefty. Let's test that out with this one. 5-stroke. So right, left, left, right, right, left, right, right, left, left. If you tap on here, choose make lefty, left, right, right, left, left, right, left, left, right, right. and I'll send it back. Okay. Let's go into Playlist Manager and load up the Stonekiller Hands workout. So this playlist, which you will be able to download from PolyNome.net/demos, you see that in the bottom left. This playlist is the Stonekiller workout, which starts at 140 BPM, and it is 1 bar. Oh, this is a count. Yeah, this is the count in to begin with. So then we have 1 bar of right hand playing 8th notes, followed by, you can see it's 1 rep there, 1 bar of the left hand playing 8th notes. And then it's 2 reps of the right hand. So if you scroll here, it's the same pattern, but it's played twice now. You can see 2 reps here. So 2 reps of right, 2 reps of left, 3 reps of right, 3 reps of left, and then you get up to 8 of each, and then the tempo increases by 10 BPM, and you start with 1 rep again. So this is a perfect example of why it's much more fun to do this with PolyNome than it is to do it with just a regular metronome where you would have to stop and change the tempo. And what I have on this playlist, I think I've turned on voice announce, and so if I just play this,
1, 2, 3, 4.
Ready and.
So it gives me a ready and when I have to change hands. So 2 reps of right,
Ready and.
2 reps of left.
Ready and.
And then if I go back to the main page, I can turn on big numbers in the menu here. And this is a different kind of display. So I'm playing right hand. I can see how many reps I've got left. And it gives me the cue. So I don't even have to look to know what's going on. And you notice I've also got a different sounding click.
Ready and.
For the right hand is a high pitch click and a low pitch click for the left hand. So 4 of 5, 5 of 5.
Ready and.
And now we're on to the left hand. So playing this exercise is now just fun. You sit down, you hit play, you know it's going to take you 20 minutes to get through this whole thing. You don't have to count how many bars you've done and be focusing on that. You can be focusing on your technique. You've got Siri telling you when you're going to change to the other hand. So it's much easier to focus. Now this playlist, I've put all of the things in individually, and it's pretty quick to do this, but you can download this from polynome.net/demos. And the reason that I put them in individually is because it increases by 10 BPM with each rep until it gets to faster tempos, and then it starts increasing in 5 BPM steps. So you get 220, 225, 230, 235, because 10 BPM steps up at those high tempos is too much. Now, let's say you get to 240 and you decided you wanted to add another rep at 242. Really easy to do. This is a section header, and when a section header is selected, PolyNome knows and gives you different options. So if I tap on the plus button up here, I can say duplicate item, which is just the header, or I can say duplicate the section, which will duplicate all of these. So note that we have 208 rows. So I'm going to just duplicate this section one time, one copy. And now we've got rows 209 through 224, because it added this section again, the same thing, 1 rep, 2 reps, 3 reps. It's called Stonekiller 240. I can rename that by just going to this page and renaming. So I'll call it 242. And then I can set the tempo of this. See, these tempos are 240 still. I can set the tempos for all of those by just setting the tempo for the section. So I'll tap on the tempo display, choose 242, and it sets the tempo for this section. So now this section plays back at 242. So the way I worked on this is the only example I have of practice I've actually done. I would play through, and if you are interested, this playlist actually has a video at the top where I play through the whole thing. I'll just drag it into the middle somewhere.
Ready and
So one thing I like to do is play around. So I think this was the first time I played through it, and I'm talking to the camera about what I'm thinking about with regards to technique. And if I go to the end, you'll see me struggling probably. Let's see how I did.
ready and
Yeah, left hand struggled at 240.
ready and
So I could just about get to some of these tempos, but I don't think I quite finished the exercise. So if we go to the practice log, let me show you how the notes work. So let's say I've just played through this example for you now, and I get basically to 240, and this is when I just can't do any more. So I'm playing this, and then that's as far as I can go, so I stop. If I go back to the main page, these are all of the ones that just got played, but this is my final tempo. This is where I ended. So I can add a note right here and say left hand seized up and I fell off my stool. And close this, and you'll see there's a note now for this exercise. So that's how I know how far I got and how I was feeling at the time. So let me show you how that shows up in the practice log. I can go to the practice log again by tapping this button, and we're filtered on the Stone Killer hands workout. So all of these events here are ones from me practicing. So there's all those individual things. So there's a lot of events, and we're not interested in all of those. We're interested in overall statistics and things with notes. So one thing I can do is scroll down and view 17 events with notes. So you'll see the most recent one you'll recognize. And then on the 2nd of April, I had a note that said shook loose, then managed 8 reps at 244. So these are all the events that you have notes for. But more useful than this is the practice report. So if I load up the practice report, there's various options here. Now there's a detailed report which will show you everything. So in this you get a PDF, and it shows you 1 second with the right hand at 140, 1 second with the left hand at 140. So that's a lot of information, too much, we don't need that. It shows me the summary, which is the Stone Killer hands workout played at tempos 140 through 235. But the most useful report is only events with notes. So if I load this, what this shows me, and I can zoom in I think on this, what this shows me is 23rd of March is when I first played this exercise, and after a cumulative practice time of 17 minutes 9 seconds, so that was all the time I'd ever spent on this playlist, I made a note for the preset left hand at 235 BPM that I could play for 8 seconds, and I said just about made it to 235, left hand getting a little bit behind, right hand can do most of 240, I can also do push-pull at 240, left hand not able to do push-pull anywhere near 240. So that was exactly how I was feeling about this exercise. That was exactly what I could do on that date. And at the time, I will tell you that I didn't feel like it was possible for my left hand ever to be able to go any faster than that. It just felt like I don't know how that would work. But I played this every day for not very many days, but I got better, and this is how I knew I got better, because I made notes and I could basically see exactly how things had changed. So on the 24th, after a cumulative time of 33 minutes, I struggled at 230 with the left hand, was trying push-pull on some slower tempos. Left hand still not comfortable with the movement. It might help regular strokes if I can improve the push-pull. It still feels like 240 BPM. will never feel easy to play. So that was my state of mind on the 24th, when my left hand could only play at 230 BPM. Now you'll see there's more entries on the 25th after 52 minutes of practice time, 53, and if I move along to 29th of March after cumulative practice time of 1 hour 49 minutes, now my left hand was up to 240, and I said slowed a tiny bit at the end, but pretty much there. And then I did 252 BPM for 4 seconds with the right hand and 266 with the right hand, just 3 seconds worth. And then on the 2nd of April, I managed to get, after 2 hours total practice time, I stopped and shook my hands loose, and I managed to play 8 reps at 244 BPM with my left hand. So that's only like a week after I started. And by playing through this simple 20-minute exercise, every day for a week, there was notable improvement. Now, the reason that I show you this is that for me personally, without having written down those notes, I really wouldn't know if I'd improved or not, because I wouldn't remember what it felt like a week ago. And if I'd written it down in a book, notepad or something, I might not find that in the right place. I might have been working on other things, and so to find those particular notes would be tricky. And here, I just put it right into the app at the exact moment that it's happening. So if you have students, you can send them playlists, you can airdrop them a playlist for what they should work on for the week with all the timers and things set, and then tell them if they struggle with anything to make a note on the exact thing they're struggling with. And when they come back a week later, you can simply load up the practice log for this particular thing that they're working on, and you can do the events with notes, and you'll see exactly what they were struggling on, when in the week they were struggling, what kind of progress they made. So I think that's really useful. And while you're in here, you can look at some charts which will show you, if I set this to be the whole year, you'll see at the top, this is practiced. In fact, let's do March, because that's when I was working on it. So April, March, you can zoom in. So this was my practice per day on this particular exercise. Amount spent on left hand versus right hand. This is the total time on this playlist, and then the tempos that I worked on. And the tempos is really useful if you're working on a groove, for example, and you want to practice this groove in the region of 115 to 125, and it will show you how much time you spent on each tempo, and so you can then decide which tempos you need to focus more on. So this is the practice log charts for just that one item. But in the filters, you can just tap on this and say, show me my practice log for everything. And in here, when we look in the charts, it'll be clearer. So this is all the practice I've done today versus yesterday, all this week versus the previous week, all this month versus the previous month. And if I look in the charts, now this practice time versus preset makes more sense. You can see the presets I've spent the most time on. Oh, that isn't. So most time on the Snarky Puppy preset, and then some on Pyramid Song, some on Steve Reich Ringtone, and then this is the practice time versus playlist, and then practice time versus tempo. So most of my playback on this has been at 120 BPM because that's the default tempo. So that's what the practice log looks like. So I saw some questions pop up. Richard, are all those playlists are available in a PolyNome library to copy, I think. Yes, there is a public library which you can access in the menu, go to public library, and that's a forum on the PolyNome website where you can download presets and playlists that other users and myself have created. And recently, a group of users put together the contents of George Lawrence Stone's stick control book. So if we go into Playlist Manager, if I search for stick control and load this, you'll see the index of the book. I'm going to add that, just that pop-up was saying I could add this playlist of links as a quick access, which I will do in a second. So stick control index, we've got page 5, page 6, page 7. So let me add this to the quick access. So click on the gear and say use this playlist as quick access. And now I can load page 5. So exercise 1, 20 reps of singles. Exercise 2, 20 reps of singles leading with the left hand. So this is the stick control book. And there's all sorts of stuff like that in the public library. And patrons of PolyNome also get to download, for example, this demo video is going to go up at polynome.net/demos, and I'm going to upload the stone killer workout, and I'll upload anything else that I talked about, so that if you're a patron you can just download those from there. So am I going to put the video as IGTV? Maybe. I don't know what the format of IGTV is and whether I can post this whole thing, which is going to be an hour and something. If it fits with that, then yes, I will do that. Random question, I noticed you included a video of Snarky Puppy. Can we add our own videos associated with a given preset? That's actually something that only I can do, but perhaps I'll look into ways of doing that in the future. And if for the super patrons of PolyNome, then I could team up. If that's something that somebody wanted to do for their students, then we could look into a way of making that availability. And they're actually all the questions I can see on the screen. So if I missed some answering a question, then please retype it and I'll get around to it. So hopefully that made sense with what my workflow is, and maybe you had some ideas of how you might utilize it. And I'll show you in a second how to create the quick access playlists for your scheduling your practice. You've seen examples of playlists. Creating a playlist, I'll show you very quickly how to do that. So you want to create a playlist for example, an exercise where you're going to play single stroke rolls and you want to play them at 10 different tempos and you want the order to be mixed up. So this is going to be a quick dive into some of the more hidden features in PolyNome. So I'm on the playlist page here. I'll begin by creating a new playlist by tapping the plus button, add new playlist. I'll call it singles random tempos. So we have our blank playlist. So the first thing we do is add an item to this by tapping the plus button up here. I'll add a new item in the playlist and I'll call it singles. And I said I wanted 10 tempos, so I'm going to make 9 copies of this by tapping on the plus again and choose duplicate selected items, and I'll make 9 copies. So these by default are all playing for 1 rep. And there are various ways of setting those reps and the tempos and things. So one of the ways is to tap on the gear button to the right of the row, and I can choose to play this for 2 reps or 3 reps or whatever I want, or for a certain amount of time. So let's say this one's set for 2 reps. This one, maybe you want to set that for 5 reps. So you can set things individually like that, but I'm going to show you more useful ways for doing things with a lot of items. So let's say the lowest tempo we want to work on is 100, so I'll set this one to be 100. And let's say the highest tempo we want to work on is 200, so I'll go to the last item and set its tempo to 200. And now pay attention, because this is where a lot of the power in PolyNome lies, is in the edit and actions menu. So by tapping the pencil button, we go into edit mode, which is where you can drag, reorder things, and you can delete them and you can loop them. I'm going to select all by clicking on select all, and then the select all turns into an actions button. So if I tap actions, I can perform actions on all of the selected items. And what's in this menu will change depending on what you have selected. So I have an option for tempo, rep, and timer options. So if I tap on this, I can then narrow it down to whether I want to affect the tempo or the reps or the timers. I want to see the tempo options, so I can either set the tempo for all of them, but that's a long-winded way to do something which can be done more easily. But here I can also choose ramp tempo and random tempos and metric modulation, which is not for today. So ramp tempo will assign tempos between that first tempo of 100 and 200 in even divisions, and random tempos will assign random tempos, but again it will use 100 as the minimum and 200 as the maximum. So if I do ramp tempo, it's easier to see that we start at 100 and then 111, 122, 133, 144. And if you just wanted to then mix those up, you can tap on the playlist name and choose Shuffle Playlist. It will check you want to do it, and now 200, 133, 155, 177. So this is kind of fun if you set these to be, say, 4 reps each. This is like a guessing game of name the tempo. You just close your eyes, hit play, and try and guess what the tempo is, and then you can open your eyes and see what it actually is. Or you can practice your singles and jump around in the tempos instead of always going from slow to fast. Lots of different things. But I basically wanted to demonstrate these features for basically automating things that you don't want to have to go and set this to 100 and this to 111 and this and then make changes. And so that's how you create a playlist on a basic level. So then let's look at organizing playlists. And the same thing applies to presets. So if we go into Playlist Manager, like I said, I have a lot of playlists in here. So this is messy. And ideally you would want to be able to narrow this down to just what you're interested in working on. So to do that, you use labels and filters, which is, if anybody's used Gmail, it's the same principle. So on this page, this is the multi-select button, which lets me select multiple items. So I'm going to choose that singles at random tempos, stick control, stone killer, hands workout, Wilcoxon's 40 essential rudiments, the warm-up, piano practice, I'll talk about that in a second, Blundell speed. So these are all drum related things. So I might go labels, and now I can add some labels. So I'll say these are all practice presets, so I'll add the label practice. These are also all things that you would play on a practice pad rather than the kit, say. So I'll add pad, create that label. And then you might, well, let's stop with that for a second. So now you can see that all of these items have the labels pad and practice. So if I want to clean up and just view the presets that are related to practicing, I can tap on filter, search for practice, and now I'm filtering on only practice presets. So that's much easier. And then let's say that this one, let me change this and say that this one and this one, for example, were things that you would do on the kit. So I'll modify the labels for these, and I'll add the label kit. And then you'll note that when we are filtered on practice, this shows me all of the other labels that are applied to anything in this list. So I can say there's 2 of these which are kit and there's 7 which are pad. So if I'm at the drum kit, I'll narrow it down to the things that I can do on the drum kit. And if I'm at the practice pad, I'll narrow it down to things I can do on the practice pad. So labels and filters are a really great way to organize things in your library. And you might just want to use the labels to decide what you're going to work on Monday. So you say this, this, and this. I will work on a Monday. Add the label Monday, which already exists. And then you can filter on Monday's items. This is what you work on Monday. So that's how you can organize playlists with labels. And now I'll show you how to create the quick access playlist that I demonstrated earlier. And for the record, I am planning to make a slightly easier way to do this in the future. I'm thinking that you will tap this and choose new quick access and then select the items you want. For now, what you need to do is clear the existing quick access. And when it says quick access, this is the default quick access, which just gets reused by other things. So if you tap on this button on the left, it expands the contents of the quick access into the playlist. So watch, at the moment we're looking at singles random tempos playlist, but if I tap this, now we're looking at the quick access playlist. So I'll add items to this, and because it's a quick access playlist, my only options are to insert section headers or links to other playlists. So I'm going to insert some links, and I'm already filtered on Monday, so I want to add these options. And note that this is 20 minutes long, so we see the time. This is 53 seconds long, so we're seeing how long our Monday list is going to take to play. And then I'll insert those links. So these are now in the default quick access playlist, and I want to save this for easy loading on another occasion. So I'll tap on the gear button and choose Save As. I'm going to save this as Friday. And you'll see it's now been renamed to Friday, and if I tap on this again, it's going to load Friday up here. So if I was viewing any other playlist in Playlist Manager, let's say I was just viewing this tempo automation playlist, and this is cleared. So I just come back to the app and it's Friday, I tap on this gear and choose load. And these are all my quick access playlists. So I'll load Friday, and that's how you do that. So I realize that's not quite as streamlined as it could be, but I'm planning to streamline it a bit more for the next update. So finally, scheduling, we've looked at how you can use, I'm doing this the wrong way, aren't I? Talking about it and then showing you the bullets. We've used labels, we've added them to a quick access link playlist. There's also a daily journal in here, which you can get to from either the main menu, so there's daily journal here, and you can go to the practice log from here as well. But when you go to the practice log here, it's basically showing you the practice log for everything, whereas when you click a button on a playlist or on a preset, it's showing you the practice log just for that item. So the daily journal is basically like it sounds. Is you just have one page per day, and you can add whatever notes you want to this. Today I did this and that. And you don't really need to put too much in the way of details about exactly what you worked on, because you can always view the day's events and see exactly what you worked on. You know, the things that you can see in the practice log, you don't necessarily need to write about, but you might want to put some thoughts and feelings about how things are going. And you can also use the daily journal to plan for the future by picking a date in the future and adding an event, and then you can make some notes about what you might want to work on in the future. So daily journal is fairly simple to use. I think if you were working on something, so let's just play this. So I think if you go to the daily journal, so we can get to it from the practice log, here's the daily journal button. I think the last thing that you played is in the clipboard. At least it used to be that way. So if you tap and hold, tap and hold and paste. This is not, oh, we go, paste. So Stonekiller hands work out right. So that's a quick way of just putting a reference to what you're working on if you want to do that. But aside from that, the daily journal is basically just one page per day for you to write things in. So finally, with tracking practice, what information will be useful? When did you last work on something? What tempo did you play? How did you feel at the time? We've covered that in here with the notes and the statistics and things. But what's really cool is setting goals. So having a goal for something is a good way to motivate you to go and practice, because you've said you want to do so much on something. And PolyNome has a whole bunch of really useful goal tools. So let's just come out of this so we can see where we came from. We're in the Stonekiller Hands Workout playlist. Let's say I want to set a goal for this playlist. So we go to the practice log and we tap the goal button. And that brings up the goal settings sheet, and it's fairly self-explanatory. There's explanations about each thing, but you have two goal types. You have an open goal, which is just a certain amount per day or per week or per month, and you have a deadline goal, which is a certain amount of time by a certain date. So let's say we have an open goal, and I say my goal is to do an hour per day. You can also set a target time if you want to do an hour a day until you hit a certain target. You can also set target tempo. So let's say my target tempo for this is 250. And then you can set a start date if you've already done some work on this and you don't want that practice to be logged towards your goal. You can set when the start date would be. So if I hit done, this changes color and we're now viewing the 1 hour a day goal. And so what you see here, instead of what you did previously versus what you did today, what you're seeing is what your goal is for today versus how much of it you've done. So my goal is an hour and I've only done 1% of it. So my aim would be to load this playlist and practice until this ring turns green. And below you see the goal for the week. So you'll see if I make this green every day, then by the end of the week this will also be green. But if I miss a day, then I'll only be at 80 something percent of the week. So the idea is to try and get all of these rings to be green to meet your goals. Now, let's say you had a goal of working on something for 100 hours or 10,000 hours. Everybody's had this 10,000 hours of practice. How long would that actually take? So let's say we'll do that for general practice. So you'll notice that while I'm in here, I can turn off goal and I get to see my stats versus the previous periods, and I can just switch back and forth between those two because the goal is set. And if I want to edit the goal for this, I just tap on here and it will take me back into the edit goal page. So I could change this and say, well, actually, maybe I just want to do 5 hours a week instead of an hour a day. And when we go back, you'll see that means I need to do about 42 minutes a day to get 5 hours a week. So let us then go back to the playlist, and you'll see this is now orange to show that we have a specific goal set for this playlist. And when you go to Playlist Manager, anything that has a goal set will have a new label automatically added, which is this one, a kind of bar chart label. So if you filter on this, you'll see all of your playlists for which you set individual goals. So that's a useful view. Like, these are all of the things that I am aiming to track progress with. And the same thing applies in the presets library. So you can set goals for individual presets, and you can set goals for individual playlists, and you can set an overall goal for everything. So that's the last thing we will look at if anybody's still watching. If we go to the practice log in here and view the practice log for everything, so I don't currently have a goal set for everything, but I can set my overall practice goal in here, in theory. Interesting. I think this was from a bug that I think I fixed. So we'll set a goal, and this time I'm going to say my target practice time is 10,000 hours. So I'll apply that, and then if I make this a deadline goal, this is going to help me figure out how much practice I need to do a day in order to reach 10,000 hours. So if I turn on deadline goal, immediately, oh no, not immediately. Let's see if it does anything when I change this. 10,000 hours, apply. Okay, completion date has been changed to ensure practice time per day is less than 8 hours per day. Maybe some people practice more than 8 hours a day, but I would be surprised if you did that regularly. So, based on practicing a maximum of 8 hours a day, PolyNome has automatically figured out that the completion date of this goal is 16th of January 2024. So if you practiced 8 hours a day until then, you would hit your 10,000 hour mark. If you don't want to practice that many hours a day, you can change the deadline. So you'll note that this 8 hours a day should change. If I made it a year later, that would only be 6 hours, 11 minutes a day. 2026, 5 hours, 3 minutes a day. Now it's possible that I put in a feature that would let you set how much you want to do a day. So let's say 2 hours a day. I'll go back to deadline goal. So now it figures out when your completion date is for 10,000 hours at 2 hours a day, and that's 2034. So I think this is a really useful tool to just give you an idea of, you know, how much it really takes to become an expert at something if you believe the 10,000 hours is what it takes. So 2 hours a day is going to take 14 years to get to 10,000 hours. So basically these things are all kind of interlinked, and I just think it's useful to be able to tweak these dates and see how it affects the daily practice time. So let me make this a bit more achievable and say that our goal is fact. I'm going to go back to the main page and look at the total practice time that I've logged in here, and that's 272 hours and 43 minutes. So if I had a goal, I have found a bug. If I had a goal and my target time was 250 hours and it was a deadline goal, and my deadline is, let's say, what are we in, 2020, and we're in, let's say it was October. So that's going to tell me I need to do 3.5 hours a day to reach that 250 hour goal by this date. And, oh no. Oh yeah, it's saying I've completed it because I've actually done 272 hours, so I forgot. So let's change that and make it 285 hours. So now it's calculating and telling me that I want to reach 285 hours by Saturday 24th of October. So my goal is 10 minutes a day and an hour a week and 5 hours a month, and it's 12 days away until it thinks that I will. Is that right? No, that's not right. I don't know what this is. So my point with this is that this will change. This is dynamic. So if I practice 10 minutes today, then tomorrow when I come and look at this, my goal will be 10 minutes for tomorrow. But if I do an hour today, then tomorrow this is going to be reduced because I did more than I needed to today. And if I do nothing today, then this will go up. So this is a really good way to keep you on track to hit a specific goal. And then if you miss a couple of days, you know what you need to do to catch up. And if you overdo it on a day, you know, you can back off a little bit. So these goal features, I think, are fairly comprehensive in that sense. So that's basically how you set goals, how you track your practice with the charts, how you can schedule things and use the journal to make overall notes, how you can have all of your exercises just ready to go with everything automated so that you just have to sit down, hit play, and play. And I said I would, two things I will show you. One of them, this playlist, the Stone Killer thing that goes from 140 to 242 BPM, all of these things are hard coded into this playlist. So 140 at 1 rep, 140 at 2 reps, 140 at 3 reps. If you wanted to work on this more slowly, rather than change all of those tempos, you can use this tempo percentage slider, which if you don't see it, it's an option. If you tap and hold on the play button, you get this button picker, and here you can change the size of your buttons, which is good for use on gigs. Oh, and there's a bug. You can disable and enable the tempo, tempo nudge buttons, you can choose what your interface looks like. And this tempo percentage puts a slider on here. So you can say play this entire playlist at 100% of the tempo. Or if this is too fast, you can just back it off and say instead of doing that, I'll start half speed. So now 140 when I hit play turns into 70 BPM. Let me disable big numbers. So you can play the whole thing at 70% speed, or 50% speed, sorry. And then if you get all the way through it, then next time maybe you'll increase this a little bit and try it at 60% speed. So that's a useful feature to know about. And that pretty much covers everything that I intended to in this. I know I've been talking a lot. My voice is almost gone. I hope that you find it useful. If you have any questions about what I've talked about specifically, please let me know. Joy asked for, or Dester asked for another FB Live. It will be interesting to see the entry of a full song. Yes, in playlist you can add a total song if you went with separate bars to practice tricky bits. PolyNome is not really designed for that. You can do it, and I think I have some examples. Let me just have a look. I think I put Teen Spirit. I have a short version that I used for a demo once. So if I load this up.
1, 2, 3, 4.
Oh, actually, this was just the drum part, and it was a demo I did with my wife. And she was playing the guitar part on a little old Casio keyboard. But basically, you know, if you have the verse part of a song, you can put it in, and then you can make different sections of the song, and then you can just copy them and drag them around.
Chorus.
And I put in some voice cues for things just to demonstrate these. So you can do it. Whether or not it's the best tool for that, I don't know. Some people have uploaded some songs you could play to. Richard has played a little bit with this. And I think if it was like a specific groove or feel you were working on, that would be a good thing to do. So it's fairly easy to do. It just takes a bit of time. So I don't think I saw any more specific questions. So I guess I can talk about this stuff forever, but you guys probably have better things to do. And I probably should stop talking. So thank you for tuning in. Like I said, this is going to be posted at polynome.net/demos. If you know anybody who would find all of this stuff useful, because I have a lot of problems basically trying to explain what this app can do, and it does a lot of things, and we covered about 10% of what it does in this video, just geared specifically towards this idea of tracking practice. So you know, if you think somebody would find this useful, please send them over to polynome.net/demos and spread the word as much as you can. I really appreciate that. And until next time, adios.